you, boss man. Thank you. Hey, y'all, what's going on? Oh, that sounds that was a greeting only for 2019. You know what I'm saying? So how are y'all this morning? That's a 2030 greeting. I appreciate it. You know what I mean? Before we go into like my talk, right? I would like to play you a poem. Is that cool? Right? I'm a poet. I do spoken word performance poetry, and I don't suck at it. And so I'm really good at it. You know what I'm saying? But I want to play this poem. It's newer. I wish I had it memorized. I don't, but there's music with it, and it would add context to what we'll be talking about. Is that cool, y'all? All right. So make sure you are actively listening, because there might be questions. You know what I mean? Sure. 2 or 3 meet, and then I remember when meeting with my grandmother, where her shotgun church has an altar as a porch, listening to her last story that was ever overtold, or her first story that was never heard. I didn't understand that stories are Rolodex cathedrals for memory, and how her live oak roots have a megaphone vibrancy that I can still feel her. How destruction and jubilee stream from the same faucet. At times I forget about transitions, and how it can be aligned with transportation. How her frail hands had the strength of the Mississippi currents, but she knew this. She was river in that way. God surrounds us through the shotgun housing vocals, so we sit in the pews, listen to the porches, forced to hear what the lumber has to say about supporting its own as a cornerstone. Voices breaking barriers, woods building houses, stories making homes, learning the difference between being lonely and alone. Since our passing in 2012, I've learned more about direction, sharpening the dull parts of my knife, better to shed the ideals of perfection. That's it. So my grandmother, who I'm speaking about, my paternal grandmother, she died September 12th, 2012, and she was my true introduction to what I think of New Orleans to this day. All right, all my family is from New Orleans. Everybody is from New Orleans except one person. Me. I'm the one person that doesn't have an accent. You know what I'm saying? And but when we would go to see my maternal grandmother and my paternal and my father's mother, my father grew up in the Lower 9, the Desire Projects, right? Which is what became extremely famous for a storm that wiped out, right? So that poem, when I wrote it, I was thinking about my grandmother's house as an altar. I was thinking of my grandmother's house as her porch as an altar that was something where we communicated, me, my cousins, and the neighborhood, and it was striking, and I didn't realize how much it meant to me until I went back and saw it gone completely. Right? We're gonna get more into that though. Right? Before she died, and before the storm, before Katrina, before all of that, maybe not too far back, probably like 2005, well, like early 2005, maybe 2004. I started doing poetry instead of rapping because I was noticing at Prairie View A&M, I was getting more female attention from doing poetry, right? I was like, man, it is too hot to be spitting in a circle around dudes. So I started doing more poetry, right? And I want to share some of share some stanzas from those old poems. Is that cool? Yeah. All right. It's cringeworthy. All right. All right. And I know it's not February, but it's close enough. I'm rounding. So I'm rounding up. So, Black History Month is coming. So I chose these poems in particular. All right. The first one is called Black Power. And the first stanza is, Black Power is more than a black wrist linked to a black hand, which forms a black fist inside of a black glove. Black Power. All right, that's not that bad. The second one, this other poem I wrote probably about 4 months later or something like that with my friend. It's called Yellow Power. And it goes as such: yellow power of the sun, we are the sun's son. We waited in line for the name Raw, but it was already taken, so we settled for the name Raw. That's yellow power, right? So I wanted to share those with you. Because that's kind of a lineage of where I came from. That's a direct lineage of the work that I was writing in 2004 to what I am creating right now and the kind of work that I'm doing now, even from what you just heard. Today's topic is roots. And I honestly had a hard time trying to think about what I wanted to talk to y'all about roots and what I kept circling back around to was my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, Alice Anderson Bean, right? And so I'm gonna tell you all a story about it. So I remember coming to New Orleans post-Katrina. My grandmother was already living in Atlanta, and me and my cousin and my dad, we pulled up to my grandmother's house, and everything was gone. Everything in that area, everything that I knew, that I recognized, was washed away. The only thing that was really there were stoops, right? Were like concrete stoops and some things. But there were two things that I saw a lot of. Beans. At my grandmother's house, the state of Louisiana wound up buying it from the family. There was beans, so we could walk in and I could remember like, oh, this is where we would play. This was the room I would sleep in, because it was shotgun homes. Shotgun homes are the homes that are it's built in a row. So when you open the door, you can see all the way down, right? So the first room would be a living room. Then the second room would be a bedroom. The room after that may be maybe another bedroom, and then a bathroom after that, and then the kitchen, and then maybe like another like family room. So it's a shotgun, and hence you can shoot a shotgun and it will go straight through and not destroy anything, right? So that was the kind of home my grandmother had, right? And this home is very, Project Row houses are pretty much shotgun homes, and that's what I equate when I think of New Orleans in a lot of ways. So it dawned on me at that time of like, I remember like getting my hair cut from my brother, my oldest brother, my late brother, who I would get haircuts from him in the kitchen, way in the back, or behind the kitchen, way in the back. And that's also where I would realize, and I remembered like, man, this is how I got into writing. My brother was the first person I ever saw like rap but the person wasn't famous. You know what I mean? I was like 8 years old. Like, it was the first time I saw someone rap and I knew you and you were cutting my hair, right? And I was always too scared to like do it because I was 8, right? But it was an impact. It was an impact left on me, so much so I got to be able to share that with him before he passed, right? That he was the reason why I got into it. And my grandmother created this like kind of this fertile space for all of us to thrive and to be in. So back to walking in my grandmother's house, right? Post Katrina. And I'm a person that learns through touching. I touched the beam and it started creaking. It started creaking like and I barely touched it. It started creaking like really bad. And my dad says, yeah, we shouldn't touch anything. We really shouldn't be walking on it because it's weak. It could collapse at any moment, right? My grandmother's house caught 12 feet of water. The roof collapsed, right? And the beams were still there. And so you know, some of the walls were there, but pretty much it was all gutted out. And he was like, yeah, we really shouldn't be walking on this, but you know, we're here. And I turn around and I see the street where it would be hundreds of kids playing, right? I see the street, and the other thing that I saw still there was, anyone want to guess? Anyone want to guess? Right. It was a tree. It was a tree. It was this tree that I would climb all the time. It was damaged, but it was still there. It was shaky. It wasn't even shaky. It was like, it was the strongest thing. And then I'm like, there's no wall. So I started noticing, oh man, all these trees are still here. You know what I'm saying? That's the kind of impact I want to make with my work. That's the kind of impact I want to have with my work. Even in the midst of a storm that I may have created, I want my impact to be rooted enough to stay with you. To stay with you through those hard times, right? And it's just, as I was writing this out, right? It amazes me how the lack of planning on the city of New Orleans, and I'm not going to get into conspiracy theories or anything, but all these different things that could be factors to why this entire neighborhood was wiped out. Right? And these trees were still there. And not only they're still there, they're protected now, right? They're protected by the city, and like they're not tearing them down because so many people have like a strong connection. And we shouldn't be cutting down trees anyway. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's supposed to be real, right? All right. And so that's the kind of impact I want to have. I want to have with my work, right? I used to write and perform, and when people would ask me, like, what do you want to get, or what inspires you? And my answer from then was, I just want people to think. You know what I'm saying? I want people to get it. You know what I mean? Ra is the sun god. We're the sun's sons. We're light-skinned black people. We're raw, right? I want people to think. You know what I'm saying? Not anymore. I mean, I want you to think. I do want you to think, but that's not my intention. My intentions, right, is to have complete compersion for your happiness. I want y'all to feel when I create. Because to me, I'm going to get more of an impact through the gradual space, right? Taking my time, than just doing it as quick as possible. Right? But I realize that I don't have that time a lot, right? So it's important for me to have people to leave with my work, right? And I see my work as seeds for it to like grow with you. Does that make sense, y'all? All right? That's my roots. That's my roots thoughts, right? My grandmother was, before she passed away, her and she was living in Atlanta. She wound up moving to Atlanta against her will. She didn't want to leave, by the way. She did not want to leave her house. That's very common. My mom's mother didn't want to leave either. We, as a family, got together and forced them, right? My mom's mother, she got 5 feet of water, but 5 feet of water is not as bad as 12, you know what I'm saying? So we were able to like redo that house. But, you know, my grandmother Alice, in the last time I spoke to her was 2012, probably about 2 months before she got sick. And she was sharp, she was a reader. And we would always argue about politics and a bunch of other stuff. She didn't like Michelle Obama. She says she always showing her arms. I'm like, no one, what? She was like, you need to be like Nancy. I was like, Reagan? Okay. What am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? Why am I arguing about this with you? But she was like, baby, I always love watching you put things together. I always loved watching you put things together. I loved Legos. I would take pieces of paper and then create worlds with it. She was like, when everyone else would think something was wrong with you for playing with paper towels, and I would make worlds out of this. She was like, I loved you doing that. And I see you still doing that, even though you're not doing that, you're doing it with poetry. I still see you as that person who's making a world from nothing. My seed comes from my grandmother. You know what I mean? And hopefully these roots reach you, and I appreciate y'all. Thanks. Yeah. Thank you, man.
Any questions? I have one for you.
Yeah, what's up?
Well, how does Houston continue to inspire you to? How does Houston continue to inspire you to do more work?
How does Houston continue to inspire me to do more work? You know, I would still be doing the work whether I was in Houston or anywhere. You know what I'm saying? Houston is an extremely creative city, so that is helpful. But like, I honestly think Houston, I can answer this question. Houston gives a lot of opportunities for artists to be artists, right? And from just researching from other friends who are artists in other cities around the U.S., even some of the larger ones, it's just not as much. It's not as much out there, right? It's not as much money that they can win, right? Friends of mine are like, man, the city gives you $15,000 to do your work, right? And the way I see that is, if I write that grant, even if I don't get it, right? Even if I don't get the money, if I took time of writing that grant, I still have the idea. You know what I'm saying? So like, then I just use that to propose to other things, right? That's how. So Houston is like, yo, it gives the opportunity for me to try to be creative in another aspect, right? Yeah. Anyone else? Yeah. Hi.
Thanks for being here today.
I'm happy to be here.
I was interested when you talked about touch, like touching that beat.
Yeah.
And I'm curious how that translates into the work you're doing now with spoken word.
How touch translates into spoken word. I like that question. So I coach a youth poetry slam team called Metaphor Houston. One of my former students is here, actually. Metaphor Houston is a youth poetry slam team. We travel around the country performing original work and competing in poetry slam, right? So one thing I learned from my homeboy, who's also a coach in Austin, he would say, his name is B. Fran, he would say, yo, poetry slam is a contact sport, right? And I'm like, no, it's not. Don't touch me. You know what I'm saying? No, what are you talking about? He's like, man, just thinking about it too literal, right? It's a contact sport because I do want my work to touch you. You know what I'm saying? I do want you to feel something. And he told me that like 7 years ago, and I was like, right? And one thing about me is I'm so laser focused, but my laser becomes more defined through time, right? And my focus becomes more defined through time. And so even like when I'm writing, I had that thought when I would perform, but I didn't have that thought when I was writing, right? And so that's what I think. Like you know, as me as a performer, I want you to leave with something at that moment. And I do want you to be touched because it's a contact sport. You know what I mean? Nothing creepy, no Pee Wee Herman touching, right? But you know what I mean? Definitely the heartstrings. Yeah. Yes. Now that I'm not 8, will I rap for you? It's more than familiar. This feeling is peculiar. To smile and cry for the people who identify how joys and pains are quite similar. It's the crown and the thorns to be hated and adorned. What's actually happening internally is actually more interesting. My black is a paradox cauldron calling the kettle in the pot's Negro. Y'all know I know my black. It's to be adorned and attached, to be adorned and attached, to be admired and rejected, desired and rejected, admired and protected. The seasoning of black is a seasoning of black. Y'all, my season is black. But lately I'm feeling a lot closer to bland brown rice. Now, when I say that part, right, people be like, why you feel like your brown rice that's bland? And I'm like, no, what I mean is Sandra, Michael, Tamir. Sandra, Michael, Tamir. So lately, my black is feeling a lot like bland brown rice. My black is aware anytime when I wear a black hoodie at night. I found my black since I surround my black within people, in places, in everything, y'all. I'm a noun in my black. This is the fondness of black since I found my black. This is the fondness of black since I found my black. Thank y'all. Yeah, word up. Where's the mic? So now that's the kind of work I'm doing, from putting yellow power, red power in every poem, you know what I'm saying? I don't rap anymore, right? But it's still there. I don't rap anymore. I kind of abandoned it. Once I went into doing poetry, I dove into it. And so, but yeah, thank you for giving me the opportunity to do that. See, that's how Houston inspires me, man, right there. Yeah, any other questions? Yeah.
So in the first piece you played, I heard something that said transitions or transportation.
Mm-hmm.
Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
Transitions and where it's taking you.
I think I say transitions are more like transportations. I think that's what I say. Don't quote me. I grew up, I'm a military brat, and so my parents, both being from New Orleans, after we left the world of like the Army, traveling and stuff, we landed in San Antonio, which is very common, right? San Antonio has 5 massive military bases, right? And we would drive from San Antonio to New Orleans, it seemed like every 3 weeks. You know what I mean? Because that's where my dad's other children are, and then when he got grandchildren, that's where my niece was, right? Like, there was always a reason for us to go. There was hardly ever a reason for them to come here until Katrina in 2005. Then the only reason was to come here, right? And so that so that's what I meant, like, that's what I was thinking about. Transitions are more like transportation, because the change, even if it's constant, it felt like it was like my north and like it's a north. It was like these two were magnets, right? So and it was both north, and it was pulling me over there. You know what I'm saying? And then my south was pulling me back. But then theirs changed, and it all pulled down to back to San Antonio for years. They lived it with my parents, and then they went back. And so that's where my mindset is at. I hope that answered it. You know what I mean?
Do you think that sense of home is informed by traveling around so much as a military brat? And I also wanted to ask, where else can we find your work?
Awesome, great. I like that last question a lot. I mean, every 2 years we moved, right? As you may know. And I have people I went to high school with, every year they were moving, right? But once you get to San Antonio, you're there. That's like if you get orders in Germany or Japan, and you get orders to San Antonio, you're moving this. You're moving to San Antonio. San Antonio is because there's so many resources there, and they usually retire you there. So I'm fine with being in spaces that are unfamiliar, right? I'm fine with making friends quickly or not. You know what I'm saying? I'm fine with sowing a seed or not. I'm really okay with that. Just because I'm okay with that doesn't mean that it's normal. I just happen to find my normal within it, right? I just happen to find my normal within it. My mother was real big on me experiencing people, and so people and cultures and all of these different things. So when we got to San Antonio, we were still traveling a lot, right? And both of my parents are in the Army. My mom is a lieutenant colonel. She retired as a lieutenant colonel in 2016. My dad, he retired when we got to San Antonio in the 90s. And so, like when I would leave, for like, my mom had to teach somewhere on the East Coast, right? The Army would pay for a flight. She was like, nah, we'll drive. And I had nothing to do. So she was driving, and I didn't really think about, like, man, you were taking this 13-year-old who did not know how to drive on these 31-hour trips. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I complained 29 of those hours. You know what I'm saying? But now I love road trips. Now I'm like, I take my time. I'm doing a road trip today. I mean, it's just San Antonio, but like I love like the experiencing what does this area have to offer. It's here, right? So yeah. So find my work. If you on Instagram, right? @OutspokenBean. Let's see y'all do that. @OutspokenBean is all spelled correctly because I'm not that poet. You know what I'm saying? I spell it correctly. All right. @OutspokenBean on pretty much everything. Instagram is where I am the most. And then outspokenbean.com. outspokenbean.com. And then also, if you want to talk to me, I'll be sitting over there. I'm going to be doing 5-minute poems. If you want to get you a poem, just donate some cash. I take card as well, but and I'll make it like a scroll. I'll make it like a scroll like this for you, right? But yeah, that's it. I don't know if we have time for another question, but yes.
Could you talk a little bit about your creative process? Like
For sure. How do I get in the zone?
Or like your whole creative process, just how you kind of come up with your ideas, how you...
When it comes to writing?
Yeah.
Is that what you're asking? Writing is, so I'm dyslexic, right? I'm dyslexic and I'm dysgraphic. And so someone go, woo, yeah, we in good company, you know what I mean? Harry Belafonte and Einstein, you know what I'm saying? So in school, I didn't like reading and writing because it took forever, right? It took forever, and I was embarrassed, you know what I mean? And like, I hated it, right? So, and then also it just wasn't conducive for me, right? Like they would give these, man, the 90s were bad. They would give these ruler-looking magnifying glasses, right? It was a magnifying glass, and they would put it so you could put it on the book to make the words bigger. But they didn't really understand what dyslexia is. I can see the words. You know what I'm saying? I can see the words. Now it's just backwards and bigger. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't help anything. What are you doing with this? But they would give it to me, and I was the only person with this odd-looking thing. You know what I'm saying? And so even if you don't know it's dyslexia, it's like with kids, they're like, well, that's different. Why do you have that? You know what I mean? And so I hated it, and I hated writing. I hated all of that, but I liked creating, right? And so when I write a piece, when I write a poem, sometimes I get the concept first, and I'll just riff from there. I'll just go from there, and what helped me a lot in staying on topic or doing like an extended metaphor is poetry slam. Like, I have 3 minutes to get this point across or to share this story in a poetic manner, I don't want to waste words, right? Again, I want to make an impact, but I want it to leave with you. You know what I mean? And so that's where my mind goes. And sometimes it's when I'm doing 5-minute poems, you give me 3 words, I'm already making the association with the words and to you, right? In conversations with you, I'm picking up what you may like. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's a hell of a guess. You know what I'm saying? And then I incorporate these different things. And so that's where, like when I get in the zone, I like that you said zone. It makes it sound like it's an athletic feat. I appreciate that. But when I get there, incense doesn't need to be there. You know what I mean? It doesn't need to be like, I don't need to create like an outside space for my inner creation. You know what I mean? I feel I'm a stream, I'm a river, right? And it can be, I was writing in a club last night, music all over the place, people dancing, and I was writing. Because I can create my creative inner peace, because I've always had to do that. It was always, like growing up, I always got interrupted to go somewhere or to go do something else, right? I never really had that space and time. And when that time was created, then it was interrupted in my head by other people like looking at me on like, why is it taking you so long to do this seemingly simple task? So, you know, I just go in, I just go within. I hope I answered that question. All right, cool.
It's about that time, Aaron. Thank you so much for showing up. And one last round of applause for
Thank you all. Thank you.